Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. A little apprehensive getting into today. We're going to wrap up this week's theme of an excessive amount of with some JILUKA. We checked them out on live stream last month. I'm well aware of what I'm in store for here. I think, anyways, assuming that this is similar to the last song we heard from them, which I believe is called Colt. This one's called Venom, with an interesting symbol for the O. There's no way to prepare for it. Let's just dive straight into this and see what they're bringing to the table today. Dude, those guitar sounds, they're riffs, technically, I guess. So much bass. The layered vocals is a nice touch. That rhythm. There's almost too much bass on this at times. The dubstep breakdown. The viscous popping. I mean, I suppose that works for... Oh! We're not done. We're still not done. Okay, yeah, that's it, right? Yeah, we definitely reached a point of absurdity there. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was expecting from them. What I gauged from my last exposure to them was deathcore with a lot of electronic influences taken to the extreme sonically more than anything. The addition of electronic elements in there certainly gives them a little bit of edge in that regard, allows them to explore a sonic atmosphere, soundscape that other bands can't. They also have some really sick, fast, digital esque guitar runs in there too. The guitarists love to go in that direction. But I think at the core of this, it's deathcore. There is a lot of rhythmic and textural based guitar riffs in here. The vocals are just screamed all the time. There's quite a few different harsh techniques on display, but the vocalist doesn't interweave them too often. It's more of this section is this technique, this section will use that technique, this blah will do in this technique. It just kind of changes up for specific moments rather than bouncing around between them rapidly to create some sort of sense of melody to the vocals. The drums are fast, intense, constantly in your face, not often having a bit of groove to them, more focused on intensity of delivery. The guitars kind of lean into all of this. A lot of textural stuff here. The bass, too, going for a sound, an atmosphere, a feeling, both like a physical feeling and a emotional feeling, while also incorporating plenty of bits of skill. That really fast tapping section that we got to hear twice is gnarly to listen to, but I think it's one of those areas where we get to see a little bit of, um, musicianship shining through beyond the texture based playing, which makes this song kind of bounce a little bit back and forth between the world of musicianship and the world of production. I feel like deathcore as a whole kind of leans more towards production generally in what I've heard of the genre. It's a genre that I haven't really dove much into. Y'all have introduced me to like a handful of artists, but I haven't really had that plunge into the end of the pool like y'all have done with black metal and death metal and, well, just, metal. Deathcore is, it's a core. It's one of those hybrid genres. Um, But yeah, so maybe it's more abundant than I expect or than I think. But as of right now, to me, deathcore is more of a production one. Lots of great textures and atmospheres, but not really one to show off your sick guitar skills. And we get to hear a little bit of that in here, though, which is a nice way to sort of balance it out, even if they still use those guitar skills for gnarly sounds and textures. I wouldn't really call a lot of the stuff in here consonantly melodic, but there's still a lot of skill on display other than just playing fast, which is kind of the idea I get with a lot of deathcore. But there is a lighter side to this, too. We have the chorus. The guitars give us these sort of poppy chord progressions. We have these clean vocals that sit alongside the harshes that have a catchy little melody to it. I love all of that. It feels like a proper screamo, post-hardcore track where you have really aggressive, metalcore actually even too, especially modern metalcore, where you have really aggressive textural verses and then more melodic and harmonic choruses. And that's exactly what we get here. The interesting thing is, though, the chorus here feels ridiculously bassy to the point that it's almost too much. I don't know that my headphones are properly displaying the low end to this song. I don't think I have the hardware to properly hear this song. Either that or it's supposed to sound kind of flat and blown out. It felt like no matter how much I turned up my volume, the bass just never felt as It never got imaged the way that it sounds. It sounds massive, bigger than anything. It never quite feels that way. I'm not blaming the song though. I'm blaming this budget headphones. Uh, but it is very large. It just fills out, not even just the low end. It feels like it fills out the bottom half of the entirety of the song. The rest of the higher pitched guitars, the clean vocals, even the harsh vocals feel like they're all fighting for the same area, a very small part of the room that's left over after the bass kick and bass guitar, and probably some synthesizer work has taken over almost a majority of the room available. It's an interesting decision, one that I'm not sure I'm entirely on board for, but again, maybe if I heard this on some better equipment, maybe even the speakers. I might have to try that later and see if that gives me a different feeling. Regardless, I don't think I heard it the right way. I'm going to throw that out there. Definitely, though, I can hear the bass in it. I've said in the past, my ears aren't great for hearing bass all the time. They made sure I heard the bass here. So we have this back and forth, though. The really aggressive textural verse and the more melodic harmonic chorus. The other parts of this song are wildly disparate, but can kind of be grouped up into the eclectic electronic stuff. Eclectic electronic. I like the way those two words sound together. Synthesizers all over the place, lots of screechy tones. The guitars are adding to this too. Honestly, there's probably some places where I misheard a synthesizer as a guitar and a guitar as a synthesizer. They're all produced heavily and altered from their original sound. That there's a lot of crossover between the types of textures and sounds that they are creating here. These are sometimes groovier. We get some syncopation out of the drums. We get some syncopation out of the melodies themselves, the rhythms of the notes. They also tend to have a bit more gnarliness to them. There's something about many of the tones on this song that just feel scratchy. They feel sharp. They feel aggressive. Guitar tones in metal in general have aggressive tones, but they tend to be a bit more. I was going to say the word blunt, but even that feels wrong. It's just in comparison to this, they are blunter. But I would rarely describe metal guitar tones as blunt. It's wild that I would even come to that word because I think that just shows how sharp the tones are in here. A little bit of the production, but also amplified by the note choices, the harmonies, the note intervals that we have here that are also antagonistic. It all comes together into something that, despite feeling like the light part of the song, it isn't the super heavy aggressive stuff and it isn't the in-your-face bass, and yet it still isn't something that I feel like I'm invited to, that I feel comfortable in. It still feels like something that doesn't want me to listen to it. Something a little different, musically foreign, maybe, of another world. It's in these moments that we find the largest deviations from the metal and core combinations that we have in the verse and chorus. We had a trap beat with rap vocals on top of it in the second one. We had a dubstep element in our third one, although also that was mixed with a pretty standard deathcore breakdown too, so that one was kind of still in the metal and core worlds, but the beat, the sounds, the dubstep wubs and swirls and all of this. It was a fantastic group of sounds to drastically change up what is usually the most boring part of a song for me. I'm not a big fan of breakdowns. I've said this in the past. I think that it's a cool technique, great use of silence and rhythmic ideas, show off the textures of your instruments. It probably sounds great live. Start moshing or whatever like that. It's probably fantastic. Huge boost of energy. As a casual listener, I just find breakdowns to just not be my cup of tea. But here, between all of the rhythmic hits of the metal instruments, we have all of these wild electronic sounds. It feels like Skrillex came out of nowhere and started throwing some of his iconic breakdown elements into this metalcore song, deathcore song, whatever, a breakdown. It's it's a wild idea. And from here, things only get more wild. I don't know if I really need to talk about this too much. Y'all heard it. I'm sure you all heard the absurdity. This isn't some deep music theory stuff. There's like 5 endings on this song, and every one of them feels final. Maybe not the second one so much, and the fourth one, I don't know. Maybe none of them really feel final, other than the first. At a certain point, you just come to expect more. But these bits of aggressive energy, 16th note bass kicks, fast strumming. I think we had harsh vocals there. Honestly, I can't remember. Uh, we have the bubbling, the viscous gurgling going on, which is the opposite of eclectic electronic. I don't like those two words together. Viscous is a good word, I think, to describe something venomous, a thick liquid, but the gurgling, it matches. It's definitely a bubbling sound. I don't like that word, though, apparently. It feels, yeah. Then we also have choirs. We have string chords, all sorts of things that sort of make these moments in between the massive outbursts, this display of metal aggression, a sense of angelicness. The chords, sure, but also the timbres of these instruments. It's wild to jump quickly back and forth between all of this. The first time it was like, okay. The second time, whatever. Third time's a charm, right? That wasn't the final one either. I don't know, man. It certainly hits a point of absurdity past that. Wild stuff. To wrap this up, I have no idea what this is doing narratively. I don't have any stronger thematic elements. As far as I can tell, this is just the type of music that JILUKA makes. Only the second song I've heard from them, but pretty much everything in here, there's a way to relate it back to the other song I've heard. So I think it's just their kind of music. Either that or it's just coincidence. These are the 2 songs I've been given. It's deathcore plus a healthy dose of electronic music and a little dash of hip hop thrown in every once in a while. Particularly trap. I remember the trap beat coming up last time too under the rap section, so maybe that's a bit of a pattern for their writing as well. But big, over the top, mildly absurd, very much cranking everything to 11. It's what I expect from them. I don't necessarily know what the requester wanted for this one to be an excessive amount of, but for me, it's an excessive amount of everything. Maybe an excessive amount of deathcore. I don't know. Let me look up some lyrics to this, see what's going on there, and then we're going to wrap this one up. All right. There is some really fun broken English in here that I have to believe is intentional. The thing is, though, is that it works. um, Something about it. It almost enters into like a caveman element of removing non-essential words from a sentence so that the end result is just a pure distillation of the idea into words. There are some other things that Yeah, they're oddly phrased in ways that I don't quite get. The general concept here, though, is that people are just kind of living their lives blindly, walking in circles, doing the same thing season after season, being in a cage. He states in verse 1, "Your thinking is frozen. I can set you free like a poison." The chorus talks about him as a faith. It says, "Are you feeling my brand new faith? I'm running in your head. It's like I'm venom monster. When it's flowing through that vein, you can make it to the next phase. To feel me with no haze, just taste my venom." The idea that he is bringing new life into people who had felt like their lives were gray, bland, boring, cyclical. He said that your thought is frozen, which I think is a wild way of basically stating that you're not thinking about life. You're just going through the motions. He says, I can help with that. Now, interestingly, though, of course, calling it a poison and a venom, there's a downside to it. Verse 2, "Black roses get blooming. Now I'm running in you. It's just like poison. You'll obey me as a slave in my prison. Feel it now. This is the violence." Yeah. It's interesting that the song begins as "I'm going to set your mind free," and that freedom is just now you have a different cage, and that cage is me. I like the breakdown though. It says, "Drink me down now. Why do you want to go back? What do you want to see? Now get this sixth sense." I don't know what it is about that final line that just cracks me up. Get the sixth sense. And it's such a strong directive. And I think that's what I love about most of these lines that are a little bit off kilter, is that they're very direct because of that. Like I said, a distillation of thought. And I think that ends up working really well for this song, and it's a general aggressiveness. They found a way to bring aggressiveness to the lyrics too, not in the way that they're said, but in the way that they're phrased. There is a bit of subversion to this. I don't know if it's self-awareness or what, but the outro, he just screams, "This is dehumanized." And I'm curious if maybe this isn't supposed to be a song from the perspective of the person who wants to rule everyone, just brainwashing them all with this poison, but instead a way of kind of showing people that you don't need to follow others. Anytime that you think someone else is freeing your mind, they're just putting you in a different cage. Can't you see how dehumanizing this is? We're supposed to think for ourselves. I don't know if I want to bank that entire read on a single line put at the very end of the song, but it's the only way I can read that in any way, since the rest of it seems to relish in the fact that he's using his venom to take over the minds of other people and control them. Unless he also relishes in the fact of dehumanizing other people as well, which I suppose can go in that direction too. Their other song was called Cult, and I'm pretty sure it was a song about building a cult around the band or around the vocalist or the narrator or whatever. So this idea of controlling other people seems to run through several of their songs thematically. No way of tying this back to the music. The music is it. It's a lot of wild stuff. So, this is going to wrap up this. These are my thoughts on JILUKA's Venom. What do you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own interpretation or opinion on this. Please put all of that and any thoughts you have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, when you listen to your favorite music. I don't know why I blanked out on this. And have a fantastic rest of your day. I botched this whole ending. I'll see you guys later.